could set ourselves up for retirement away from the city. Eleanor had frowned. We could turn that vision we once had for the place into a reality. Eleanor's eyebrows had raised. Please, I can really see us doing this. This wouldn't have had anything to do with you coming down with a serious case of empty nestitis, would it? Eleanor could always see through her. Maggie had turned her nose in the air. I'm thrilled my son has gone off to see the world, to fill his life with adventure. And she was, genuinely. But Eleanor was right. With Tim off travelling, the house that had been their little piece of sanctuary since Maggie's husband had died had become an empty shell, a reminder of a life that was no longer hers. It can be a fresh start. She'd looked Eleanor in the eye. For both of us. Maggie had wanted this, but she'd known Eleanor needed it. Will you do it? For me? Maggie knew she hadn't played fair, but she also knew the end goal would be worth gently exploiting her sister's fierce desire to ensure Maggie's happiness. And just quietly, she'd hoped the move, and now the bold step of setting up the choir, would recapture some of the spark they'd shared in their younger days. When Eleanor would write in that now ragged songbook she still kept secreted under her pillow, when they would burst into well-known lyrics at the mere mention of a word, when they would dance together under the hawthorn trees in the moonlight, before their lives changed forever, when Maggie's life was changed forever, before the shadow of that night had settled in their lives. Eleanor didn't believe in fate or destiny or magic or signs, but Maggie did. Part of her still believed in the fairies that legend said lined the Irish fields of their childhood home. First, the house that once had held so much promise and pain for the sisters had come onto the market after the death of Maggie's husband. Then Tim had moved overseas, and shortly afterwards, Eleanor was made redundant from her admin job with the Arts Council. If they weren't signs to move back to Lyrebird Lake, then she didn't know what was. And now they were here, Maggie was determined to make the most of it, and that meant starting the choir. Come on, Maggie nudged her sister. Let's set out the chairs. The bell over the front door chimed, and Maggie glanced towards the sound, where she saw the familiar figure of one of her patients walk in. Janet's faded blue eyes darted around the large open foyer. Maggie had heard the rumours around town. Everyone had. About her husband's infidelities. At 50, the same age as Eleanor, Janet, a kind, funny and intelligent woman, had given her life to that scoundrel, and that philandering excuse for a man was a fool, if you asked Maggie, for even looking at younger women. Behind Janet, two more women stepped cautiously into the foyer, and Maggie's heart sang. Told you they would come. She bounced up and down next to Eleanor and rushed to greet the very first members of the Lyrebird Lake Ladies Choir. Chapter 1. Sydney, Thursday, the 1st of July, 2004. Hannah stood in the wings, waiting for the actor on stage to finish his soliloquy. The poor guy was bombing, stumbling over his words, mixing up his lines, but as they were taught to do, he soldiered on. Most of the time the audience won't know if you make a mistake, Miss Kincaid always said, but they will notice if you stop and draw attention to it. The graduating students at the Kincaid School of Performing Arts had had this drummed into them since day one. Hannah silently willed Billy to get through the next verse without a mistake, because while Miss Kincaid was probably right about a normal audience, tonight's audience was anything but. There were agents sprinkled among the friends and family seated in the small theatre. Agents who had the power to turn dreams into reality from this one showcase evening. Billy turned around, using a natural pause in the soliloquy to look her way, eyes pleading for support, hiding the moment with a bend of the knee and a fist to the forehead, his face turned from the audience, his Hamlet truly grappling with the question of whether to kill Claudius or not. You've got this, she mouthed. As the two oldest members of the graduating class, Hannah had recently hit 30, Billy was in his 40s, they'd formed a strong working relationship over the last few years.